Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In this video, I want to talk to you about stretching. Now, it really pertains to the importance, I guess you would say, or is it even necessary? And the reason I want to do it is to kind of answer a couple of questions that I've gotten from students. One in particular had asked me, is it really necessary to even stretch? For instance, they told me that they don't personally stretch at all, and they weren't sure if it made any difference. Not like they were injured and there weren't any issues related to not stretching. So is it even necessary? And before I kind of answer that question, well, let me answer it this way. Yes, it's very important. I would highly recommend that you do it, but let me give you a little background and some reasons why, and really kind of give you what we know more about today than we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even 30 years ago. Now, when I first started training, and we're talking almost 35, 40, 40 plus years ago in bodybuilding and powerlifting, we just never really stretched. It just was not anything that was of importance because we did not know, basically, or at least I didn't know at the time, that there could actually be some potential benefits to it. And stretching actually was pretty indicative of potential postural issues and muscle imbalances that I learned later on after working with athletes. And so understanding that stretching could actually benefit performance really was a huge change in the way I thought. But I'll get into that in a second. So to answer the question briefly is yes, you should be stretching with people. Of course, the question more than is it important to stretch or how important is stretching is how should you stretch and how long should you stretch? Because as a modality in a training program, stretching is considered to be a standard requirement, I guess you say, just like warming up. Do you have to warm up? You don't have to do anything, I guess, if you don't want to, but it's kind of silly not to because we understand the physiological benefits of taking your body from a state of rest and starting to increase core body temperature. This is the warm up. But how long do you need to do it? Do you need to warm up for 15 minutes? Do you need to warm up for 5 minutes? Well, you see, this is where now program design and the art, sort of the art and science of it, comes in. So stretching fits into that same sort of frame of mind when we're talking about, do we need to do certain modalities of training, or and more importantly, how much of it should we do and what kind of stretching should we do? It's the same thing with resistance training. What type of resistance training should you do? How long should you do it for? Do you even need to do resistance training if you're a marathon runner? And the answer is I don't know. I would highly recommend it. But the point is that just like the other modalities in your programming, in your training protocols, you probably want to throw stretching in there and make sure you do it at the appropriate time in the training program. So the sequencing is important. Generally, we do a warm up and then stretching. Okay. Now, again, because there are different ways to stretch, you got to consider exactly when you want to do them. The standard, now I'm just talking in a very general way, is that we will do some sort of active type of stretching right after a warm-up prior to the resistance training component of a workout. Now, again, I know some of you will watch this and go, but what if I'm a track athlete? What if I'm a football player? What if I'm an athlete has generally more precise protocols for their training? But in the type of resistance, cardiovascular stretching type of training that we recommend from a personal training perspective is to be very simple and consistent. 5 minute warm up or longer, I guess, not too much longer. Then do your stretch. Why? Because the understanding is that when you put stress, right, on particular muscles prior to actually increasing the general core, increased core body temperature, there is a potential chance that you could hurt the muscles. So these are the things. I'm not going to get too deep into it in this particular video, but if you want me to go into it further and explain even more of the physiology of stretching, please look for the videos that we've already done, or just let me know and I can throw it in there as an addition to this particular video. So we warm up, We do a little bit of stretching, and then we proceed with the actual workout where we're doing a higher level of intensity, physical output, right? That's your quote workout. And then there are some folks that will, after their workout, after they do their cardio and their cool down, for instance, they will do another session, or if you want to call it session of stretching. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, I personally like to do that because, in one sense, I'm really warmed up at that point. My muscles have complete, because I've trained them. Now they are really warmed up. And this is where, again, some folks have asked me, well, should I do my stretching after instead of before? And the answer is no, do them both. If you want to stretch after your workout, absolutely go for it. Even stretching on off days, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But again, don't want to get off target here. The point is that the stretching itself, or performing and doing stretching, that's not the question. We always recommend to do it because we know it has physiological benefits. The question is what type and for how long. So is stretching necessary for the most part to gain the most benefit from your workout, for instance, and potentially minimize? The jury is out on that, folks. It's not like stretching is going to ensure you never get injured. That's silly. There's literally no substantial data that says stretching before a workout eliminates the chance of injury. That's simply not, that is not scientifically sound. Can it? Sure, I guess it can help. At the end of the day, stretching more than anything else, if done correctly, actually feels good. And most people will say it gives a sense of relief, or just an overall feeling of wellness from their training or before their training when they do stretch. You'll notice that I said stretch correctly. Remember, you can stretch a muscle and injure it just from the stretching. And if you're detrained, think of it this way. You got clients that have never trained before. You can really hurt them if you stretch their muscles and overstretch their muscles. Remember, stretching essentially lengthens the muscle to its end physiological length. And then, in general, depending on the type of stretching you're doing, once the muscle is elongated to its normal physiological length, i.e., the actin and myosin filaments have been essentially drawn past each other to a point where the sarcomere is at its most lengthened position, normal physiological lengthened position. And then what you're doing essentially is drawing it even further a little bit. Now, this not only stresses the actin myosin linkage inside the sarcomere to a certain extent. Of course, it puts stress on the Z lines, the titin protein molecules. All those are stress. Nothing wrong with that. But here is the main advantage, and why I will definitely recommend and say it is necessary to stretch, is because of what stretching done correctly does to the overlying fascia and collagen containing connective tissue in and around the muscle cells, the fascicles, the myofibrils, all of the connective tissue. And that's really where, and over the years, this has become more and more apparent. This is really where stretching can have some significant benefit. And by the way, it's one of the reasons why I said before, it actually feels good, because collagen fibers, and if you don't know what collagen is, it's simply a protein that is essentially makes up the vast majority. It is the most abundant protein in the body, and all connective tissue, most tissue that has some minor elastic properties to it, acts as covering, coating, fascia, we call it. Any type of connective tissue is going to be predominantly made up of collagen, but other proteins as well. So your ligaments, your tendons, again, the fascia, like I was saying, the connective tissue coverings, the epimysium, and these other very thin fascial protective coatings over different structures of the muscle are made up of collagen. But collagen is an interesting protein because it almost has a web-like structure, but it's actually creates a linear composite structure that tends to kind of get bunched up. And I'm using some very simple terminology here to help you to appreciate what we're talking about. And muscles, as they work, they shorten and they lengthen, tend to affect, or that has an effect on the collagen fibers. It's not a huge deal, but over time, it can create issues that will cause those collagen fibers, which tend to have this linear structure, almost web-like linear structure, will tend to bunch them up, so to speak, right? So the collagen fibers, this is the easiest way to think about it. They kind of get bunched up. And what you're doing when you stretch is you're moving the muscle, again, muscle bellies, fascicles, cells, they all get pulled and lengthened. So there's stuff occurring inside the actual structure, inside the sarcomere. But the overlying connective tissue is also pulled and stretched. And when you pull a muscle to its normal physiological length and then take it a little bit further, you're actually realigning and pulling those collagen fibers, or at least some of them, back into, quote, normal alignment. You're also putting stress on the tendons, right? Because they are getting stretched as well. And tendons have a fair amount of collagen as their sort of base matrix protein. Same thing with ligaments, but you're not really trying to stretch ligaments. But the tendons definitely are under stress. And once you pull the muscle to its normal physio, like if I stretch my bicep, it goes to its normal physiological length. That's basically where it ends, right? This is where you have the least amount of cross bridging occurring inside the sarcomere. And now that muscle is happy right there. And then you pull it a little bit further. You're basically pulling it a little bit further. And that's kind of the idea. So by doing this, you're basically ensuring that there's some normalcy in the back into collagen fibers inside the connective tissue, in over and inside the muscle. Now, again, because of that, you can actually hurt, strain, even rupture to a certain and it happens, not often, but it happens, the connective tissue and actual matrix of these collagen fibers. You can actually rupture them if you are dealing with a individual that is detrained, never worked out before, and you put extensive stretching into their programming. So literally stretching a muscle way beyond what it's normally accustomed to, you can cause some injuries. So with that said, I hope that makes sense. So there's a physiological reason. Now, again, is it necessary? Let me get back to that original question. Is it necessary? Well, again, this is that's sort of a value judgment you're making. Is it necessary? No, I trained for years without stretching beforehand or afterwards. Now, I sustained some injuries. Was it because I didn't stretch? I don't know. It's not relevant because now I tend to stretch a little bit more, not all the time, but with clients, oh no, I'm doing, pretty standard, consistent stretching on not only the particular muscles that we're working that day, but the entire body. So I do full stretching pretty much every day. If I'm training clients and they only train 2 or 3 days a week, no, I'm stretching all their muscle groups. And I recommend they do basic full body, active, sort of isolated type stretching or modified PNF type stretching with them every day. Now, always keep in mind, you got to do a warm up. This is the recommendation. You must warm up. Is that necessary? Absolutely. Warm up and then stretch. Let me say that again. You always warm up and then stretch prior to any type of resistance training, or if it's a day you're not working out and you want to stretch, just go through a nice leisurely kind of stretching, passive type of stretching routine. Always warm up before you do it. And take your time moving into a full body stretch when you're doing it in that scenario. Generally, when we're training folks, we do a very, fairly quick 5-minute warm up, full body stretch. It's not important to spend 30 minutes stretching. In fact, there's studies out there that will tell you too much relaxation, passive stretching can actually down regulate the neuromuscular response to the subsequent type of training that you're going to do. Does it really make that much of a difference for the average client? I don't think so. But again, there's just not enough data, not enough human data with lots of people, different age ranges, that show one way or the other that it's going to eliminate injuries, or it's going to be of extreme benefit to folks. So again, to answer the question of is it necessary, I would say absolutely yes. Do it. Make sure you're doing the right type of stretching at the right time and for the right duration. If you want more information on particular types of stretching, please just let us know in the comments section. First of all, if this made sense and this was helpful to you, write the word understand in there as well. The idea is that if you've got questions, we are more than happy to answer them. So let us know how we can be of assistance, and we will see you next week. Take care.